Got started on the body filler work on the panels. Got the doors and trunk lid pretty good. Then I'll do a couple coats of poly primer and then block sand that. So I'll keep going on the small panels, I think, and then I'll turn over to the main body and fenders because that's going to need a lot of work. So kind of want to just ease into it. Now you can see slight imperfections that you might have missed otherwise. So I don't know. There's a little blemish right there, but it helps with a nice with a shinier primer finish. Check out any imperfections, see if some there. So even when you have it in bare metal, you don't always notice that kind of thing. But when it's got a nice even coat of primer on it, some of that stuff will stand out a lot better. So a little bit of work on this panel. Got a lot of work done on the body panels. Those I had done before in the previous video, and then I've got the hood done. All the small panels are done. I'm getting a new spoilers coming because that one's pretty bad. It's got a huge crack and a big chunk out of one corner. Someone that previously used steel wool to back it up and then just filled it with body filler. And there's a couple other holes, and it's plastic, so instead of trying to repair that, we're going to get a new one. Hopefully it's a really good match to the original. Got a lot of work done on the body. That front fender's pretty much done. I think I got to get on my hands and knees and do a little final sanding down the bottom. Spent a lot of time on this quarter panel. It was a little rougher than I thought, and took quite a bit of time to get it smoothed out and leveled out. Now I'm going around doing the bottoms on my hands and knees and on my back and on my creeper. It's not a lot of fun. Sand dust in your face. I'm kind of trying to rough in this quarter panel. Had to get the big guns out. This is a old AFS sanding block that has a metal, flexible metal, and it has a removable rod. So if you want to make it a little more flexible, otherwise it's pretty stiff just the way it is. But that's good for cutting down, leveling out these long panels. I have an even longer one if I really need to, but this one's working fine for this. Fender up here is actually really nice, so I don't think I found one little tiny spot in that corner. Other than that, I don't really think I need any filler. I'll double check it again. So getting pretty close to wrapping up the filler work, and then I'll go ahead with the poly primer and start blocking it. I did the deck needed a lot of work too back here. That was pretty uneven, pretty lumpy, but overall I think it's coming out real nice. Got the high build primer sprayed on the body and all the body panels, so they're pretty much ready to get block sanded now. Just starting on this door over here. Haven't touched the hood, of course. I did this door so the high build poly primer is like sprayable Bondo, so a couple coats of that's pretty thick, so you want to sand it down till you start to break through, is my opinion, and that way there you have as minimal buildup as possible but still fill in any low spots. There's a couple low spots I had to go back with some not putty, but a 2-part sandable filler. That's a lightweight filler made just for very little skim coat. A couple low spots there. Trunk lids ready to get sanded. Body's all ready. A couple spots I noticed. I missed a spot right here. There's a little dent right there. And then when this quarter panel had been repaired at one point, I kind of missed that there's a little bow right here. It's hard to see, but I knew there was a seam here, and I did try to get that smooth above and below. I guess I took for granted there might be a little bit of work, extra work done on this body line. As you can see, it's a little wavy, but I'll see what I can do with sanding it. There might be a little extra primer or filler built up there. That might be all it is. Otherwise, I'll have to do a little more metal adjustment to get that smoothed out. Everything else came out pretty good. You know, the tail panel had a lot of things and dents in it, so that needs a little bit of work. I did notice though, it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of a, it's kind of pulled out or something down here. It's not real noticeable, but I noticed it by eye. This side looks pretty good. I started sanding this fender just for fun to see what it looked like, and there's some work that, you know, a little bit of work that needs to be kind of cleaned up here. This fender was in real rough shape, so I knew there would be something to go back to fix. The other fender, I don't know, it might have been a replacement, I don't know, but this was really in good shape. I didn't feel any imperfections in it. There was a couple spots over here, and down at the bottom was kind of bunged up, so that has some work done to it. So now it's just a lot of block sanding. I'm using, usually use 180, but it's really slow, and I found I had some 150, and that seems to be working a little faster, but still not as aggressive as 80, so that seems to be working pretty good. Started sanding the primer. I got the two doors done. They're ready for epoxy sealer primer. Working on the body now. This fender is ready. Had a lot of little dimples that I missed the first time around, so I used a two-part very fine filler. I started doing the rear quarter panels, finding a couple of divots here and there, a little low spot there, a couple low spots, but that's okay. They show up in this primer pretty clearly. So if I can't sand it down enough, I'll just hit it with a little bit of that spot filler. And it's a two-part filler, just like body, you know, regular body filler. So it's not going to shrink or anything like regular putty would. A couple spots here, and then I still got to do this side and the fender. So the goal is to get the body and the two doors back in epoxy primer for a final sand, because I want to put the doors on and do a last gap check, make sure it looks good, because when, you know, you're doing body work and metal work, you can't always, you know, those gaps don't always show up quite right. So, and I want to put some trim on, and the owner's bringing some trim, and I can put the trim on with the kind of everything assembled, you know, not everything assembled, but at least mocked up, and make sure everything fits right. There's no holes on this side for the emblems. There's no hole on that side for that emblem. It goes around the gills. And this side's got holes, but they're not really in the right spot. So I'm probably going to just re-drill them properly. I got a template that's factory accurate, and then I'll just fill those in, and it's not a big deal to fill them back in and weld them up even now, because it's still going to get primer epoxy on it anyway, so it's just a surface repair. So it's going pretty good. Got to keep lots of sanding. Got the body and the doors block sanded. and then sprayed 2 more coats of epoxy just to seal up any body work that was maybe exposed, but it also helps show any imperfections that might still be on there that I might have missed first time around. Plus I wanted to get the doors back on and double check the door gaps, make sure everything's still lined up the way I had planned it. Everything looks pretty good. I think this door needs a little massaging on the bottom. It's really tight back there. It's not really square. The problem is you can't really do much because this pretty much sets the height. So there's really just a door skin issue. The rest of the parts are all sanded with 120. So the pink primer, the poly primer has been sanded down. And when you sand it, it turns gray. So like this hood had the pink poly primer on it. And then that's after block sanding it down. And you see some imperfections pop out, but there's nothing that needs any repair. All it's doing is leveling with the, the hard blocks I'm using. Gets it really flat. Because these blocks have a steel band underneath it, spring steel, and then there's rods that you can take in and out. You can take those rods out to make it more flexible, because right now it's pretty stiff. It stays pretty straight. So that helps get you a real smooth, slick surface. So I'm going to block sand this, and then that's it for the small pieces. That cowl piece is done, and then the other valance piece, that's been sanded. That valance is sanded, this one's sanded, and I'll just do this hood, and then I'm going to do a couple coats of epoxy just like I did in the body, and that gives me a nice finish to like see if there's any imperfections that need to be corrected. So it's going along real well. Making pretty good progress. I got the small panels all sanded and a couple coats of epoxy on it, so they're pretty much ready for final sanding. And the trunk lid and the hood also. So all the body work is done, and now it's just a matter of catching any loose ends, any minor repairs that might need still to be done, and final block sand, and then should be ready for paint. We'll see how it goes. If it's not really coming out, there's scratches, or I have to really, things aren't as level as I hoped. Might take a little touch up here and there with some more filler, or maybe some another round of primer on some pieces. But we'll see how it looks after it's all sanded out. Everything's been sanded down to 320 now. I even did this door in 600 just to see how it would come out. I used the powder on there, guide coat, just on the door with 600, just to see how it was looking. The rest of everything else has been done with 320, and I use an orbital with a 320 disc, and it gets it level and flat, but I can also see, where there might be some sand scratches or divots you might have missed. So I was able to use the hand block on this one and got that a lot straighter and smoother. It was a little ripply. I mean, there's some spots that are still could use a little more sanding, but it's going to need to get, I'm not decided yet whether I want to just go ahead with a couple coats of white epoxy sealer over the top and then wet sand that with 600, or if I want to sand this to 600 and then go right to white epoxy sealer and then go right to paint. That's another way of doing it. But everything's real nice and smooth now. I'm very happy with the gaps, very happy with the alignment I got all the holes done for all the emblems. I got to finish up these two back here. Location wasn't quite right. Got those fender badges located. The hood's nice and straight and flat. That's all sanded with 320, and then all the small pieces. I just got a new spoiler. That's been a kind of a fiasco. The original one that was on the car was all cracked and boogered up with crappy filler, and there was big chunks out of the corners like it had been hit something and somebody repaired it. So we got a new one, and then that had cracks on the ends and pieces broken off, so then they sent another one, and this is the new one they sent. Much better, nice and clean, nice and straight, no chunks out of it, but of course it's still got to have a little fine tuning done with some finish work. So, but this might be the last time we see it. I might do one more quick update, because I think we're gonna shelve this car till next spring. The owner and I both have different obligations this fall, and it's getting late in the summer, believe it or not, and it's going to put a time crunch on it, and neither one of us wants to have the project hang up in the middle of something. So after everything is sealed up, you know, if there's any metal showing, you know, like on some edges, I'll touch that up so there's no exposed metal, and then it'll go back for the winter, and then come back next spring and I'll final paint it, because you know, you never know what can happen. But it's coming out real good, very nice. He came and looked at it the other day and hadn't seen it since he dropped it off, and I think he was pretty pleased. So I know I am. It's coming out good. So that's going to be it for now. I might do, like I said, a quick update before it goes back home for the winter. Had to do some adjustments to some of the holes for the emblems that go on the sides. So I had to go back and re-drill and re-weld up the old holes, and then a little bit of filler work, and then re-prime it with the high build poly primer. No big deal. But if those holes aren't trimmed just right, then they kind of stick out and you can see the holes in the bottom of the door, passenger door. This had to be trimmed up probably almost, I don't know, maybe 3/16 of an inch, and then tapered back, and then had to be epoxied and filler and high build primer. So I just got to finish block sanding this down, and then everything else has been block sanded to 320. So I'll just go back over this and then finish up loose ends, double check everything, make sure there's nothing I missed, and then I think I'm going to shoot a couple coats of white epoxy primer, and then I'll sand that in 600 grit, and they'll be ready for paint. So I got all the panels sprayed with another coat of epoxy, a couple coats, thinned out so it flows a little better. Now I can sand them all in 600 grit, and they'll be ready for paint. This one I've already sanded to 600. So they'll bring out any tiny imperfections. This one I've got the guide coat on, and I'll go over that with 600. So I'm not really trying to contour or anything, I'm just trying to make sure that there's no sanding scratches, that it's got a uniform texture and mostly uniform color. I mean, 3 or 4 coats of color will cover any. I'm not worried about this stuff. I mean, it shows through a little bit where I had to kind of sand a little extra in a couple spots, but it didn't really break through. It just got a little thin, so there's still a good coat of epoxy there. So now it's just a matter of finishing up the final sand, and then it'll be ready for paint. So I don't see any obvious blemishes anywhere. So I think it came out pretty good. I'm very happy with the contours, very happy with the filler and sanding and body work. And I think it's come out real nice. So cross fingers that the paint goes on well and no issues there. So just keep moving. Everything is done, ready for paint. It's all been sanded to 600 grit. I fixed the little imperfections. I found little spots that needed some little bit of filler, little tiny imperfections. I touched up the areas that sanded down to bare metal in a couple spots. Unfortunately, the epoxy, the activator, kind of turns a root beer color, so it makes the white epoxy turn a little yellowish. So there's some blotches where I did some touch up that look like yellowish. So I think I have some more epoxy activator that's newer, or not newer, but it's just as good, but it's maybe a whiter or clearer color. And I might just go and touch that up. So now it's just clean up the shop and it's ready for paint. I mean, I've gone through every square inch of the thing at least a couple times, made sure I caught a couple of spots. There was some blemishes like under this lip right here on both sides. It wasn't like nice and even, so a little bit of filler work there. I missed there was a little gouge like right here. I filled that. There was even a little gouge, not even gouge, but just a little tiny imperfection like right on this edge. So a little bit of two-part filler, and clean that up a little bit. The spoiler's been bodyworked, sanded, and then high build primer, sanded, and then epoxy, and then sanded 600. So that's ready for paint. The only issue is that spoiler, the valance the cowl, the front valance, um, trunk, lid, all get stripes. Um, the only one that doesn't get stripes is this lower front valance, and then the two doors, obviously. So I got to figure out how to paint everything, because if I was to do it separately, it gets tricky because you can't let the base coat sit too long before you tape it and put a stripe on it. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to lay it out. And then the stripe even goes up onto here. And I don't remember, no, then there's no stripes back here. So that's just pure white. So now it's just a clean, massive cleanup. Retape it, get all the plastic off. The tires are wrapped up in plastic bags. Get those out of there. Clean this whole place. Set up a tent. So be nice to paint next weekend. But there's a lot of prep to do in the meantime. But I'm very happy with the bodywork. I think it came out really nice. I try to catch every little imperfection. So now comes the really stressful part, is painting. And hopefully, I'm going to do all the precautions I can think of to prevent the issue I had on the other car with the white, with the having imperfections like dirt and dust in the clear coat. Hopefully that's not going to be a problem this time. So I'm thinking positive thoughts. All right, I think this is going to be it for this episode. And the next one I'll do for the final paint and sanding and buffing.